Hey there, guys. So I want to thank you, as always, for joining our latest live stream. Of course, I've been doing these live streams every other Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I do appreciate you guys for taking the time to check out these streams as well. Again, as always, I like to keep each of these streams a little bit unique to one another. And so I don't want to keep things repetitive. So again, I do really appreciate it. If there are any questions or feedback you would like to share during this stream, feel free to let me know. Sometimes I can't reply to comments right away when I'm doing the stream, so I apologize if there's a delayed response there at all. But just know that it does take me a little bit of time to sort of be able to engage on that. Another thing too, as always, guys, I do want to share my website. Again, if you're not aware, I do offer online fitness coaching, and you can visit bponlinefitness.com to learn more about what I have to offer related to online fitness coaching. I have a ton of information on there that you can check out. I have free resources outside of just learning about online fitness coaching itself. You can also check out some information such as signing up to the email list, where I send out an email newsletter each and every Monday. I also have a blog that you can check out that I upload to usually every Friday that you can make use of. And again, check that out if that's something that you're interested in. I always share a ton of different topics on that as well, whether that be fitness, nutrition, recovery. All of those different topics are discussed in that particular, in my blog. So, as always, definitely check that out if that's something that you're interested in. And again, guys, I do appreciate your time. What we're going to be going over today is on how fitness should expand your confidence beyond the gym. So, like what I've mentioned a lot of times with some of these streams, I've really made it an emphasis to focus more on seeing fitness as basically more of an extension, more of a, I guess, for lack of a better term, more of an extension to your overall life, to where you see it as a way for you to improve every aspect of your life rather than just seeing it about, again, like the physical appearance. And I've really made that an emphasis because I think we all do get caught up in one specific thing, but there are many benefits that you're going to get when you make fitness more of an active part in your life. It's not just going to be one thing, it can really expand into other areas. So, some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today are, again, we're going to be really talking about how fitness can really build your confidence in a lot of ways. But there are extensions to these topics that we're going to discuss. So, we're going to go over strength in the gym can become confidence beyond the gym. Keeping promises to yourself builds self trust. Physical strength can change how you approach difficult situations. Stop making your appearance the only source of confidence. And physical strength can change how you approach, again, difficult situations. I do have that repeated, but I do have an additional topic outside of that. So let's go ahead and start with strength in the gym can become confidence beyond the gym. So you prove to yourself that you can do hard things. Every challenging set you complete is going to reinforce that ability to work through discomfort instead of immediately backing away. And I'll try to get out of the way here. I always take up the whole screen. But I do, every time I go through these, I will say all the points out loud. So even if you can't see them, I always make sure to go through each and every point. Another thing, too, is that progress is going to create evidence of your capability. Watching yourself become stronger reminds you that consistent effort can change things you once thought were limitations. This is another thing that I've always mentioned when it comes to noticing your capabilities. One of the things that I've always seen as a major benefit that has, really come to building a workout routine is noticing the change in my strength in performing workouts. Noticing that I can lift weights heavier, noticing that I can do things that I couldn't do before that were, again, I didn't have enough of that strength to be able to lift a certain way or to be able to perform a workout a certain way. Those are some really big milestones to appreciate. There was one exercise where I first started doing the exercise, and I was thinking, there's no way that I can get to the point to where I can do this exercise comfortably. But you'll be surprised is that when you continue to keep trying with workouts, you'll notice that you can do a lot of those exercises. It's just the confidence and the sort of strength to get there does take time. So one exercise that really challenged me and one that I really wanted to learn is known as the Bosu ball squat. And basically with this, there are two different ways that you can do this workout. So if you're not aware, a Bosu ball is basically, you've likely seen like the big stability balls, but the Bosu ball is basically a stability ball that is in half. So it's just one side of the ball, and then you have a flat surface. So you can perform workouts in different ways with this particular equipment. So you could stand on the ball with the ball side and use that as sort of a way to challenge stability. Or you can do it on opposite direction where you could stand on the flat surface, and that can be another way to challenge stability. However, that requires a little bit more balance. So more so when you're standing on the ball, like on the top side of like the ball part, that requires more stability. Whereas with the other side, when you're standing on that part, you have to have a lot of balance. You have to have a lot of balance to be able to do that. And so that was one of the workouts that I really enjoyed, and I really, at the start I was like, there's no way, because my like when you first step on that and you do, it's like how am I supposed to stay stable? But you can do that. It's just one of those things where you have to get adjusted to how that exercise works. And once I started to build that strength and started to notice that I could perform that, it was just a different feeling. And I think that's one of the biggest feelings that you can really benefit most. And I think that's, again, like what I've mentioned before, that's where a lot of progress can be found is when you are in those moments where you notice that change in strength, you notice that change in your energy, you're noticing all these different aspects that are changing. And I think that really makes a huge difference and becomes a good motivating factor to push forward. Another thing too is that training itself teaches you to trust yourself. So showing up, following through, and keeping commitments to yourself can strengthen that self-confidence outside of the gym. So again, we're not only building that physical strength, but we're building sort of a mental strength and a ability to really stay dedicated to the process. And again, like I've mentioned before, when you focus on trusting in yourself, when you focus on really building upon these elements, it does transfer into every other aspect of your life that you may not be aware of. Physical strength can change how you carry yourself. So again, going back to the aspect of how we feel and sort of the physical changes, you will notice that you have better posture, movement, energy, and physical capability. Again, going back to what I mentioned about strength. These can influence how confidently you approach everyday situations. So again, when you're building these skills in this way, what related to physical strength, it transfers into other parts of your life. Setbacks become less intimidating. So when you miss a rep, when you hit plateaus, or when you go through difficult workouts, these teach you that struggling doesn't mean you're failing, it just means you're still learning. That's one thing that you have to think about when you are approaching workouts is even if you have those set of workouts that, it's a struggle to get through, even if you feel like you're doing your workouts and you're at a plateau, always continue to push through. And so this mindset, again, this goes back to the mindset thing. Whenever you are, working towards a goal and you're passionate about that goal, those setbacks are not going to seem, not really going to seem as a limiting factor. See those setbacks as more of a way to overcome a challenge. Like I said, with the workout that I just mentioned previously, and how you have to challenge your stability, the reason why I really enjoyed that workout is because really liked the challenge that it brought, because it wasn't a simple workout that you could just do, even if you were doing it body weight, it was still a very difficult workout. And so, because that was something that kind of brought a little bit of challenge, I really enjoyed that. I liked that feeling. Really think of it in that way. I sort of like to see it in a sense as a video game in some ways. And if you guys know me, you know that I'm really passionate about video games, but I think this is a good analogy because it's sort of the same concept where, there's a lot of times in games where you're likely stuck on a specific part of that game, and then you do it enough times, you put in the reps, for lack of a better term, and then eventually you do get past that point that was really difficult. It's the same concept, and that's the way that I saw that exercise, was seeing it as a challenge that I could sort of face. So see that in the same way that you see a lot of your setbacks that you may encounter in your routine. Focus on seeing it as something that you can really learn from and you can overcome in that sense. Keeping promise to yourself builds self-trust. So every time you follow through, this becomes evidence. So each time you complete the workout, prepare the meal, or take recovery day you planned, you reinforce that you depend on yourself. So you're again creating this feedback that when you're following through with all of these different aspects of your routine, even when they feel insignificant at the moment, that is still evidence that you are keeping promises, that you're building that momentum. Even again, if the workouts aren't going as great, even if your nutrition may be struggling here and there, the fact that you're doing the best that you can, that you're focusing on improving your nutrition piece by piece, the fact that you're showing up to the workout, even if you may not have reached your particular goal for that day or for that week, the fact that you're continuing to show up is enough in a way where you're aware that you're keeping those promises to yourself. So small promises are powerful. So self-trust doesn't require these dramatic accomplishments. Again, don't think so much about trying to reach these huge milestones. Don't see that specifically as the accomplishment. See all of these little individual things that are happening that you're completing and how that is adding up over time. So, consistently keeping realistic commitments builds confidence over time. So, set promises you can actually keep. Committing to 4 workouts and completing 2 can feel discouraging, but planning 2 and completing both creates momentum you can build upon. So, again, like what I've mentioned before, when we talk about goal setting, when you set goals, you want to make sure that it can fit within your overall life. You don't want to set goals that are just, it's great to set big goals, but you want to have a way to where you can frame the goals where it can fit into your current situation and it can be something that can be achievable within your current situation. So starting small, again, like planning 2 workouts is a great way to start. 3 workouts, like do what you can at the start, and then as you build that momentum and as you adjust to your goal and you're reaching that set goal that you made, then challenge yourself, then change it as you reach that goal and continuously, build upon that. Consistency strengthens your identity. So you gradually move from I'm trying to, excuse me, you're gradually moving from I'm trying to become consistent towards I'm someone who follows through. So again, it's building upon that mindset. All of these things are connecting. So, what you're doing in reality is connecting mentally at the same time. So adjusting isn't the same as quitting. So again, something sometimes keeping a promise means adapting it. So a 20-minute workout during a busy week can still honor your commitment to move. So even on your days, this is another thing that I've mentioned when it comes to, you know, building upon our commitments and our workouts and staying consistent, learning to adapt whenever life gets in the way, because life is going to happen. You're going to have, and this is kind of like what I discussed yesterday in my Facebook stream when I talked a little bit about nutrition, but life in itself is going to happen. You're going to have those moments where your routine is normal. You're having a routine that's normal. It's stayed normal for at least a few months or, you know, almost to a year, but then you have those crazy moments that happen where maybe you're doing some traveling, maybe work obligations change, maybe family situations change. So learning to adapt and having a routine that is going to adjust around that is key. Even if maybe you have to cut your workout short, even if it's like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, still show up to that workout, still find a way to where you can stay consistent and then again build back to that normal rhythm that you had before. But learning to adapt is the biggest thing to really succeeding. It's not just about, again, like what I mentioned before, a lot of people rely on staying motivated every single time they work out, but you cannot do that. You have to learn to show up. You have to learn to adapt when life gets out of hand, because naturally life is going to happen. And a lot of people feel the need to quit whenever the routine is suddenly shifted. You cannot do that. In order to succeed, when it comes to, and this could be related to a lot of different aspects in life, but when it comes to a fitness routine, you have to be able to adapt when those things changes. When those changes happen, it's going to happen. You have to be willing to, endure those moments and overcome them. So physical strength can change how you approach difficult situations. So this is a very important thing. Again, this goes to the same aspect that I mentioned, that this what you notice with physical strength transfers into a lot of how you feel mentally and how you're able to face different situations, outside of the gym. So you learn to stay composed under pressure. So challenging sets teaches you to focus on what you can control instead of immediately backing away from discomfort. So that's one thing that a lot of people tend to fixate on with exercise, is that they say it's uncomfortable. That is really the whole point of exercise, is for it to be uncomfortable. It is not supposed to be, you know, the most exciting thing to do. It is supposed to be a form of challenge, is a form of physical challenge. And so at the same time, this helps with really transitioning into how you build that mental strength at the same time. Hard things become less intimidating, so regularly choosing appropriate physical challenges can reinforce the belief that difficulty doesn't automatically mean you can't handle something. A lot of times when something is difficult, it just means that we need to put in the rep to improve, put in the reps to improve upon it and to become better through it. So you develop patience with the process. Strength takes weeks, months, and years to build, reminding you that meaningful progress, sustainable progress, in other words, outside the gym can take time too. So, like what I've mentioned many times before, is a lot of these points that I mentioned about fitness and nutrition, they transition to a lot of different aspects in life. So you become more comfortable with adapting. Some workouts don't go according to plan. You adjust the weight, change the approach, and continue. A useful mindset is when circumstances change. So, learning to again adapt to those changes, continuing to show up, continuing to try, even if the workout is not as great as you expected, the fact that you're still showing up and that you're still putting in the effort is proof of progress. So you're collecting evidence of your capabilities. So every weight you eventually lift that once felt impossible becomes again a reminder that today's limitations don't necessarily have to be permanent. Again, that goes back to what I mentioned about strength, how strength is when you notice those changes in strength, like what, that's one of the big things that I thought was a really big indicator that I was going in the right direction, even if I didn't see the physical changes necessarily right away. Another thing, of course, I've mentioned this over and over again, but I think it's still important. Stop making your appearance the only source of confidence. So, looking good, of course, is a form that is going to boost your confidence naturally, but it shouldn't be the only thing holding it up. Build confidence through capability. So, be proud of what your body can lift, carry, endure, and accomplish. So, think more in terms of strength. Value the promises you can keep to yourself. Every workout completed and healthy habit repeated is strengthening that self trust that you have within yourself. Recognize qualities that aren't visible. Discipline, resilience, courage, kindness, and consistency don't show up in progress photos. So think again about the qualities that you're building, what is happening behind the scenes outside of that physical appearance. Don't let appearance dictate your mood. Your body will change throughout different seasons of life. Your self worth and how you view yourself really needs to be a stronger foundation. Again, it is really great to have that physical confidence. That is not a bad thing to have. But the fact is that we have to think outside of that. We have to think about how we're feeling overall, how we're feeling mentally, emotionally, and how this is, again, all of these different factors that are happening within our routine, how it is contributing to everything outside of life itself. So you have to think about it in that context as well. So, again, I think I've got this repeated here, this same slide. So, well, no, that's a different one. Physical strength can change how you approach difficult situations. So, even though I had the topic in there repeated, this I have the slides separate. Sometimes I get in a rush and some of these things can get out of hand, but this is still a relevant topic. So, building physical strength can teach you how to approach challenges with greater patience, confidence, and persistence. So you learn to stay composed under pressure. So those difficult sets teach you to focus when something feels uncomfortable or demanding. You develop evidence that you can improve, so the weights that once felt impossible can eventually become manageable. Through consistent effort, you become more comfortable with the struggle. Strength training reminds you that difficulty doesn't automatically mean that you should quit. You learn to break big challenges into smaller steps. That's another important thing that I've mentioned before. One rep, one set, and one workout at a time can translate into handling problems the same way. So, again, you are learning all of these skills when it comes to fitness. This physical strength is developing a lot of the different aspects that you may not be aware of. And again, this is something to pay attention to. I know that initially, when we get started with something like this, you're not going to notice these changes immediately. Like it is going to take time to see some of these changes in how you feel right away. And again, like what I've mentioned previously, don't again rely solely on that motivation when you approach fitness or when you approach, nutrition, because we all are going to go through, especially when we get started, having that sort of honeymoon phase, for lack of a better term, where whenever somebody starts a routine, they're all for it. They're, going all in on it. And after those first few months fade, it gets to the point to where they start to continue to rely on that motivation, and that just becomes the only factor that keeps them going. So, again, you have to push past that feeling of motivation in order to see the results start to add up. It is the hardest thing to get through is once you get past that particular time frame. But whenever you're able to stay consistent for months and months after that, it just becomes automatic. You don't really have to think about it. That's like with my own routine. I don't really have to think much on if I'm doing it or not. I just do it, you know? I mean, you get to that point to where it's just an automatic thing and it's just a part of your daily routine, and that's the way you have to see it. But again, just to reiterate, is really think about fitness in a way outside of, again, just the traditional things that we think about, and think about how it is building you mentally, how it is building that overall resilience and how you handle things. That is one of the biggest benefits that you're going to get from that. And that is something that I learned myself from my own routine. Like I said, whenever I got started, it was really difficult. I think really the hardest moments in a routine is really those initial starting points, is because you're kind of trying to figure things out. You've not fully built that mindset. And so it does become really challenging because you've not really adjusted to the routine itself. But that is one thing that I've always mentioned to any client that I've worked with, is that's the one thing that you really have to think about, is that a lot of these things, we want the results really fast. I was the same way, where I felt like I had to do like 7 days of workouts and I had to do this stuff really fast in order to see results. But you have to have a structure, you have to do things in a sustainable way, and you have to take it piece by piece rather than trying to take these huge leaps and trying to reach the goal as fast as possible. So it's more so the focus on the process itself. So with all that being said, guys, again, I really appreciate your time. That's all I have for you today. If you do have any questions on anything I've discussed here today, and you would like to, of course, share any topics that you would like me to mention in any future streams, feel free to let me know. Again, you can visit bponlinefitness.com to learn more about online fitness coaching and what I do have to offer. There's a ton of information on there that you can make use of. And again, outside of just learning about online fitness coaching, there are some free resources on there. There's a fitness blog you can check out, as well as sign up to the email list where I send out an email newsletter. And usually the latest live stream is on the homepage as well that you can watch. So there's a ton of information on there to make use of. But with all that being said, again, guys, I really appreciate your time. I really hope that this was helpful and that it gave you a little bit of insight on how you can approach fitness in a unique way. So thank you guys once again for watching. I'll have another live stream the following Thursday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. But again, guys, I do really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.